Hello, everybody, and a big welcome to episode 9 of FRS Recruitment's Leading Through People webinar series. My name is Derek Perill, and I'm the Head of Business Development with FRS Recruitment. I'm delighted to be joined by my distinguished guests, Will Corcoran, Midwest Regional Manager of IDA Ireland. Will, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Derek.
Chris O'Brien, he joins us all the way from Pennsylvania in the US. So Chris is the CEO of one of Ireland's latest US startup companies, Exida. They're a virtual startup, so to speak, and he, I suppose, set up an operation here, literally in the middle of the pandemic, no less. So, Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Derek.
Last, but certainly not least, is Peter Culbert, and Peter is a senior safety engineer with Exida. Peter is Exida's, I suppose, first consultant hire for the new Shannon-based operation. And Peter, you're also very welcome.
Thanks. Thanks, Derek.
Okay, so throughout the next hour, we're going to discuss the challenges and how those challenges are met for a startup operation in Ireland in these, I suppose, most unusual of times. So US-based CEO Chris will tell us a little bit about the background and the history of Exida and the reasons for choosing the Midwest region in the first place, meeting challenges and I suppose the long-term goals of the business. Peter will talk to us about his own experience, first as a job-seeking candidate, and then as Exida's first hire and overcoming, I suppose, any difficulties of a virtual hiring and onboarding process in a startup operation, along with, I suppose, the current plans, hiring plans and events for Exida in Shannon. And then finally, I'll speak with Will Corcoran, and Will tell us of his own experience supporting IDA in this pandemic and how the IDA supported businesses are doing, I suppose, overall across the Midwest. And then finally, I suppose the whole remote working, how that affects FDI and what that looked like into the future. So to our viewers, please note that there is a chat function on the right-hand side of the screen. Feel free to say hello, and we truly welcome any questions. We'll have about a 10-minute Q&A at the end of the webinar where we'll get to hopefully most of those questions, and any unanswered questions we'll get back to you afterwards. Please do note this webinar is being recorded and will live stream on social media channels such as LinkedIn and YouTube. So to get started, thanks again, Chris, for being here all the way from Philly. And as an introduction, can you tell us a little bit more about Exida and the history of your business?
Certainly. So at Exida, we're a global certification and consultancy firm, and we work primarily on systems that we would describe as high availability, high reliability systems. So they're machine safety and guarding systems, autonomous driving systems, safety systems in chemical and refining plants. So we've really focused on that area, help people. We have products, we have project services and certification. And we've this year we celebrated our 20th anniversary, so we weren't quite able to have our large party we planned due to COVID. But there's other bigger challenges than that to worry about. So,
very good. And can I ask, Chris? I suppose it took a lot of courage to set up a new operation, and it was in the height of the pandemic. So when we first started speaking with you guys, we didn't know what the year was going to hold, not to mention the next 2 or 3 years. So a lot of courage there. My question to you is, what were you thinking? Well, at the time, how nervous were you about the move?
Setting up that office was kind of, we're like 2 years into that plan. So we had identified in, say 2019 that we have a significant presence in Europe. We have quite a large office in Germany. However, that's almost exclusively automotive, and the team is very engaged and almost 100% loaded. So there's a lot, and we've done some work in Ireland, some work through the rest of Europe, and we felt we needed another office to focus on markets outside of there. And we had talked to some peers and talked to some folks, and we knew we wanted another office in the EU. And we also have one in the UK that was, as we all know, with Brexit, is in and out of the EU. So Ireland came up a few ways. Some folks had said, hey, it's a really good environment to do business in. And I must admit, I was there in early 2019 doing an audit for an Irish company, and in the departure lounge of the Shannon Airport, I don't know if it's still there, I haven't been back since COVID, there's the big IDA wall talking about move to the Midwest. And so took a picture, made a note of that, and we reached out to IDA, and it was part of a strategic plan that we wanted to be here, and we really got a lot of help through IDA and other companies like FRS.
Super.
So,
and tell me, Chris, I suppose, why the Midwest in particular? Like you had your choice of anywhere in the country, and does your surname O'Brien have anything to do with it?
Well, I didn't want to bring up the Bunratty Castle and say I like seeing that family crest up there, but since you brought it up, no, primarily we work with industrial customers, so equipment manufacturers, pharmaceutical plants, refineries. And that's more, as we knew and had confirmed with help from the IDA and other folks, that's more in the Midwest and West, not so much, say, in Dublin in that area. So we were looking at this, and then the other issue is, there's not year-round direct flights out of Philadelphia to Shannon, but Newark, which is 60 minutes from where we are, Newark, New Jersey. There's direct flights all year, so. It made sense. It wasn't hard to get to, and it was where our customers were.
Okay, very good. And what was the overall experience like? I know you've been to the Midwest before, but actually setting up a business when you're based in the States and all your suppliers and the people that you can't meet face to face, we can get that feel for how they do business and all that. What was the overall experience like for you?
It went really better than we could have hoped. So reaching out to IDA proved to be a great idea. And we were able to meet face-to-face with some of the folks out of New York City. Philly's not far from New York, so we had a few meetings before COVID started shutting things down. And even were able to meet, some folks from Bank of Ireland, even out of New York at the time. And so that ball got rolling, the strategy made sense. And we had been putting together, IDA had been putting together the itinerary for the visit, in late February, and then just as March rolled on, it just was clear we weren't going to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. And then we did the virtual itinerary, and that worked. It really worked well. I mean, I appreciate everybody who spent time to talk with us, including yourself, Derek, and other folks. And I guess it was probably over 4 or 5 days, but I think as we've all learned through the pandemic, we can get more out of a Zoom call or a Teams meeting than we would have guessed a year ago. And it was a little, we knew we wanted to be there, and almost the business planning, the more detailed planning we did with IDA helped just really solidify this that it made sense. And our business is risk management, helping people manage high risk things. So we have a little bit of, standing still is not zero risk. So it fit our philosophy well enough.
Okay, good. And was there any major challenge in particular that stands out? Maybe if there's other companies looking to set up an operation in Ireland, in the Midwest, or even, I suppose, a company willing to take a chance at the moment and expand their operation here, because I suppose some of the limitations around hiring, virtual, from home staff and training and onboarding. Anything major that came up that you had to overcome, and advice you could give around that?
I think the two ones that we were maybe most concerned were hiring remote, mm-hmm. and picking the location remote. So we got good introductions, very good introductions, and I'm not overselling it, but like the methodology of the IDA, being able to talk to multiple universities, peer companies, that really helped a lot. Introductions for banking and accounting and legal firms, that's helpful, because you're even when we can travel to a place, we're just kind of picking. We're even if we can go there, picking those resources are not. You may or may not have a good reference, but we did think, one, getting the right location, and I had several of us have been there, for clients and travel. So I had an idea. I knew where the business park was, where we wound up in the free zone. Free Zone, yes, Shannon Free Zone. Thank you, Peter. So even just having that familiarity was helpful. But the virtual tours and the IDA helped with like understanding where we were, what our business was, and what type of people we would need to recruit. And we looked, south, west, southeast, and north of the city. And Shannon wound up being, I think, the place, and the folks from FRS helped confirm that. And then they were very helpful doing a virtual tour of the facilities, the property management company. And so that worked out well. And then as we hired people, they were all happy that we had picked that. So it did pan out in the end. And then, but as a consultancy, people, every business people are your most important asset. And, it's amplified in a consultancy because we don't have a factory. We don't, the product we deliver is our services and our people. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, Derek, we came back and asked, all right, so we can't interview, what would you recommend? And the advice was maybe have more people interview. Like normally when we bring somebody in, we'd have different people in the organization interview them because they're there for the day. So we split it over a couple days and a couple different teams of people interviewing. And, that has worked well. We're quite happy with the help, very happy with the help from FRS and the methodology. It worked. And we do a little bit of a personality questionnaire that we've learned over the years. We do that whether we're doing in person or not. So just a little bit of, try to do some benchmarking with metrics, and then, trying to be as thorough as we can. So, and it's worked. We've been able to hire 3 people so far. I'm very pleased with all of them.
Super. And one more question for you in terms of the vision for the future, I suppose, your long-term plans for Shannon and Ireland overall.
Yes, so we're quite excited. So, as a company, we provide, software products, we provide certifications, and we provide what we call life cycle services. And we're going to support all 3 of those out of Shannon. So we've hired some consulting people, and we've hired software developers already, and we're in the process of applying for, one of the strategic reasons is, although we're in the US, we're ANSI accredited, we're accredited by the national accreditation body. There's no trade agreements between the US and the EU for those standards. Therefore, we can't be a notified body. So we are going for INAB accreditation and notified body status. So we'll have a consulting team there. We'll do, machinery certification and other things out of there, and we're going to grow the software team. So our goal really is in 3 to 4 years to scale that up to about 25 people, and and continue to grow the rest of our presence in Europe, but really support some products globally, be a center of excellence globally, probably for machinery, and then support local and global customers on projects and assessments. So far, we're getting good response from customers, and we're very, we've drugged Peter into not some good customers, but with complex projects, and he's helping us out there already in a big way.
Great stuff. A nice segue to speak to Peter. So you passed the personality test anyway.
I have to get my hands on those results, I think.
Well, you're here. That speaks volumes. So listen, thanks as well, Peter, for joining us today. Just as an introduction, can you tell me a little bit about your own background and your role with Exida?
Yeah, so 20 plus years in industry, leading up to joining the team at Exida. Originally industrial electrical, moving into engineering across pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and the last 10 years in oil and gas, international down in the BP ACG field in Azerbaijan. So it was, so from a functional safety and, process safety and process industry background, Exida's, I suppose, or Exida's hallmark and brand was definitely something that I admired and was appealing to me from a candidate's point of view.
Okay.
That's pretty much my background coming into the team.
You'd relocated for the role, or to be home as well, hadn't you?
Yeah. The previous role I was in had me away over 6 months of the year, so I would have had to basically relocate to be permanently here in Ireland. So obviously from that perspective, on a personal side, it was a kind of a big choice for us and a dynamic change, especially with 3 young kids, and how we were all going to work that one. But no, not sorry at all that we did it. So yeah, really happy from that side.
Super. And can I just ask, some people will join and watch the video afterwards that are, I suppose, job seekers themselves looking to make a move or considering a move in these times, because they are a little bit difficult at the moment and people are looking for stability. I suppose your experience from an onboarding point of view as the first consultant hired into Exida, and it all done virtually as well, and not getting to meet with Chris and the team in a more traditional face-to-face manner. Can you tell me about that overall experience and any of the challenges that you had to overcome yourself?
So I mean, I've had a kind of a long-standing, really good relationship with FRS, to be honest, with the team in FRS. And over the years, they've, always any roles that came up, they'd always see if I was interested and would I think about coming back to Ireland to do them. So when the Exida role came up as well, it was really intriguing, and obviously the pandemic had effects as well. But yeah, so I mean, those were good questions that I asked as well. Training, onboarding, how does all that stuff work? And the team at FRS actually had a lot of information already. And when I got to meet Chris and the guys and the team through interviews, finding out that everything could be provided remotely, from a training perspective, and as a service we provide online training, self-paced or in an instructor live streamed fashion, which was great to be able to do that from the get-go, and feel like I was, at least, when everybody's at home in a pandemic, it's Groundhog Day, and you want to feel like you're productive in some way. It was, it was good to be able to do that. The support I received from the guys out of the US, great. Everybody maybe in a remote fashion, everybody made you feel welcome, and it's a hard thing to do. To make somebody feel welcome over this type of a highway, I guess. But yeah, really warm welcome. Everybody was brilliant from the start. So I couldn't speak higher of anybody that was involved from an FRS or Exida point of view.
Very good. And thanks for plugging that, Peter. Can I just ask, I suppose, about your own role and the service you'll provide yourself locally, and as that team expands, Chris had mentioned up to 25 hires. So, how you see that panning out in the Shannon area and what part you'll take in it?
Yeah, so it's kind of my role to manage the operations as well as be the senior safety engineer for various customers and projects as well. And so, yeah, I mean, we're trying to get as much, exposure to try and let people know that we are there to support services locally, nationally, European levels, global levels, as Chris mentioned, involved in global projects already. So from an Irish perspective, Exida Ireland, we're looking to service a range of industries, and as Chris will tell you, from an automation perspective, the application is across all industries really, the way things are going these days. So we want to kind of ramp up, as Chris was mentioning, the certification side from the OEM through to people, through to your actual process, your plant, that type of thing. Also the support services as well for software products, and also for our training and that. But yeah, servicing exactly like Chris said, your machine safety, your process functional safety, cybersecurity, alarm rationalization. And Exida brings, and this is one of the reasons I joined the team, it brings a lot of years of experience with experts across the globe from all sorts of different industries. And when you interact with Exida, you get that type of experience, and any lessons learned that we're taking from one project to the next. And from my own experience in industry, that's invaluable. It's like gold, to have somebody as a partner that you can actually, pick up the phone or say, I'm having trouble with this, and somebody says we've had that in the past, or we'll have no problem supporting you there. So yeah, from the Exida Ireland point of view, we want to be able to support a range of different industries in a range of different ways, but mainly certification, as Chris said, life cycle and product.
Okay, Okay, good. And just on that note, I suppose servicing customers and I suppose engaging with new customers, and I have to bring it up again, I hate doing it, but the pandemic is the elephant in the room, so to speak. How is that working in terms of lockdowns and interactions with customers, and how have people welcomed you to the Midwest?
Yeah, I suppose, being honest, it's personally myself, I like to be in a room with people. I like to meet people and things like that. But I'm very, very surprised and pleasantly surprised at the level of interaction that you can get through these types of formats. Yeah, I think Irish people are very welcoming anyway. So I think we've managed to probably get a very warm welcome from everybody. The guys at the IDA as well, really supportive in putting us in touch with different people, giving us a really good support structure at the start. Yeah, the challenges are, I mean, getting the name out there, because not everybody knows of everybody in different industries, and some particular customers might not even kind of realize that there's somebody there that can help with a specific pain point. For example, if you've, I don't know, in a typical manufacturing plant, if you've got multiple trips of your production line, you're not realizing typically where that comes from. So you're trying to get that, brand out there to let people know that there are support services. There is people available to help with that type of stuff. So, typically what we're trying to do is we're trying to have some, some events. We've got lots of help from Shannon, the Shannon Group outside and the Shannon Chamber and facilities like this, like you guys are doing right now for us as well. It's really good. It's something that I would encourage a lot more of. I know people are sick of webinars at this stage, probably around the country, but yeah, you always pick something up, I find, in it, and especially if people are having casual conversation, there's something that you might not have thought of before. So whilst it was challenging, to answer your question, I've been pleasantly surprised at the support that everybody's given us and the interaction.
Okay, good. And then a little bit more on the hiring over the next couple of years. I suppose the profile of the person, the type of skill sets that you'll be looking for. Will it be mostly consultants, or what's the run of it for the next maybe 12, 24 months? Yeah,
like Chris said, we're looking to hire on a few fronts. So yeah, definitely from the consultancy side to help with the life cycle and engineering services. But as I mentioned, across a range of different industries. So it doesn't specifically have to be machinery or process or electronics, or stuff like that. It can be all. So, I would definitely be interested. I'm sure Chris would be the same, to see there's a lot of talent out there as well within the different industries. So don't feel like you're just if you've got an electronics or an IT background that you don't have something to offer to the team, because we do cover a lot of bases with the services we offer. So yeah, engineering for sure on a few different fronts: electronics, electrical, mechanical, automation. Yeah, and we try and build for the certification teams and also for the life cycle support. But as Chris mentioned, software development as well, to develop our software platforms. So those typical roles as well.
Okay, very good. And any plans over the next couple of months? Any major event coming up, or any more webinars yourself?
Yeah, the plan is to probably do a few things. We're trying to put together a local launch, if we can, just in the Shannon Limerick area, to try and just let people know what we're here and we can provide different services for them. But yeah, we just keep an eye on the Exida website, on LinkedIn and things like that. We do have some things in the pipe work. I don't want to go too much into them now, because I'm probably shooting myself in the foot. But no, yeah, stuff on machinery safety, we've got a big drive on that coming up, and also in various specific industries, to try and let people know that functional safety can actually be when modeled correctly, can save your life, but also save you some pennies as well. So yeah, that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've got some stuff coming up.
Super, good stuff. And thanks for that, Peter. And just to remind anyone who's viewing, feel free to ask any questions. As I said, we'll get to some towards the end, or at least say hello to us. So just click on the right hand side of your screen to do that. Will, listen, thanks very much for waiting very patiently there. It's very good to have you here with us. And I suppose just to kind of pick up on what Chris was saying a little bit earlier, and it's the work that the IDA is doing. In fairness for Ireland, it's just been an incredible job, a real success story over the last number of years. I believe they're some of the hardest working in the public sector right across the country in terms of the hours that go in, the different time zones, the itineraries, I suppose rolling out the carpet to make sure that FDI, the companies are very welcome into Ireland, and trying to break down any of those kind of compliance barriers. So, you know, it's made a huge difference to my own hometown. I shouldn't say, because, you know, I work with a national agency and, you know, it's all of Ireland, but, you know, I'm proud to be part of what's going on in Limerick and the amount of investment that's coming here into the, when I say Limerick, I mean the Midwest region, Limerick, Clare, Tipperary. What's come in here over the last few years has been phenomenal. So it's really good to have you, and I'd like to kind of get an idea, Will, from your perspective, I suppose, how things are, and I suppose the Exida startup. Maybe if I start by asking you, how did that compare to pre-pandemic itineraries and pre-pandemic times? If we could have a bit of a comparison to Exida versus the old time.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Derek. And I think Chris and Peter have covered it really well. I'll have to slip them a $50 note and a €50 later on for all the kind words. No, really has been a pleasure working with Exida from, you know, start to right through to launch. And I guess in the Midwest, we're lucky that we've, you know, over 130 IDA client companies across the region, over 20,000 people employed, from advanced manufacturing to financial services, to tech, to pharma, to medical devices. So it's really vibrant ecosystem here. And I suppose, you know, I'm really lucky that IDA has that global network. So I think Chris mentioned it earlier, you know, day one, it's Duran and the team in New York, you know, are that local point of contact. And that's why it's important to have the office there, that someone on the same time zone, speaking the same language. You know, I don't know, is the American accent too strong, but, you know, being able to, I suppose, deal with a company in their own time zone, you know, have peer companies already in New York and Pennsylvania and along the East Coast that they can reference, and you know, so Chris and his management team, and, you know, have everyone comfortable that, you know, this is the right decision and it's worth exploring further. And then Kathleen Bohan as well in our her team, our high growth emerging team, you know, supporting on I suppose all the questions that need to be answered around, you know, incorporation, employment law, you know, salaries, you know, why is Ireland the right decision? Why is the Midwest the right decision? And I suppose convincing the company to take a closer look. So I suppose when the pandemic hit and really escalated, you know, quite a bit quickly for us, and we were lucky in that we'd relatively recently done a technology refresh ourselves, so we're able to adapt quite quickly to offer that virtual site visit. And I suppose the process there, you know, you don't have the hotel rooms, or you don't have the flights, or you don't have maybe the traditional, you know, welcome and you know, dinners and, you know, selling, I suppose, the lifestyle and the quality of life in the Midwest region. But, you know, luckily enough, Chris and some of his management team had already some experience of that. So I suppose, Derek, folks like yourself, you know, trustworthy service providers that, you know, we know if we did an introduction, you know, that you'd exceed expectations and really deliver for Chris and the team. So a number of those types of meetings, Chris mentioned Bank of Ireland earlier, you know, service providers like that to make the process as smooth as it can be. It's, you know, it's always challenging opening an international office, not least, you know, as a global pandemic is taking hold. Peer companies and you know, partner companies and potential clients as well. You know, we've really strong automotive ecosystem developing in Shannon, really strong life sciences and advanced automation cluster, you know, from pharma to med device to engineering. And then the educational institutes, the likes of LIT, UL, Vero, the SFI centres. So I suppose just really given the confidence that this was the right decision. And I suppose in terms of time frame, we originally planned a physical visit in March. That couldn't happen. I think it was April when we first started the virtual site visit. And maybe one of the added benefits, Chris, one of your colleagues I remember mentioned that, it's great that we were able to join for this. If Chris had flown in on his own, we'd have just assumed he's because he's Irish American, and he enjoyed having a pint at Bunratty Castle, and so I think that was an unexpected advantage that the HR team, folks from your finance team, subject matter experts were able to join and get a sense of the region as well, which maybe not necessarily in normal circumstances might have happened. So maybe that was maybe one advantage, but I suppose the obvious disadvantage then, as FRS have done a fantastic job in terms of supporting you on the recruitment and getting Peter on board and getting you started. But typically we do a launch event, where you invite all the partners you've worked with. You can invite the chamber, the local companies, and you kind of have that big bang effect that gets the name out there. So while we were able to do an online launch, and we have this event today, Chris, I'm really looking forward to the time when we can have you over and do that proper, I suppose, welcoming type event where you can have some of your partners and customers there. So I suppose that's really I suppose maybe how we've shifted from the physical to the virtual, and that goes as well for our existing clients, which Exida are one of now. So how do we support them ongoing as they look at their own skills needs, look at maybe transformational technologies that will impact their own business, look at sectors and trends like sustainability and how that will impact their business. So I suppose we're in it for the long game, and great to win new clients, but it's really all about supporting our existing clients and making sure they're happy.
Okay. It's great to see how well this went, I suppose, all things considered. Like, if you take the pandemic out of it, startup is difficult in itself. Doing anything remotely is difficult. But that from the IDA perspective, and from yourself, Peter, and Chris, from your own perspective, how smooth it actually was. And I think that's encouraging for other businesses that I mentioned a bit earlier, are kind of on the fence as to whether they make the move, whether they expand right now or not. So, really interested to hear that, and delighted to hear it, to be honest. And that, I suppose, leads me on then to, you mentioned, Will, I suppose, the support that the IDA give companies then on the ground in the Midwest. So how are things in general overall? There's been a huge amount of success stories in recent times, and how is that going, would you say, here?
Yeah, I suppose it has been quite a challenging year, and our number one focus has been on supporting our existing clients and companies, and people like Chris that were in the process of evaluating and about to make a decision, guiding them through successfully. I suppose when the pandemic hit, there were some immediate effects we would have seen on industries like aviation, folks selling into hospitality, folks selling into the travel sector. So, a lot of these industries, seriously affected, and, folks managing their own supply chain, both on the, I suppose, supply side and then on the demand side. And then reacting to, I suppose, the various restrictions in terms of having a remote workforce. How do you meet your clients? How do you meet your partners? So I suppose we've been quite, keen to engage with our companies, be it on one-to-one basis with our various teams that understand the sectors they work in, from a regional basis, getting companies together so they can, I suppose, share some of those maybe challenges and solutions they've found to adapt in the current environment. So definitely, a challenging time, but overall, I think our IDA clients have overall shown a huge degree of resilience. So I wouldn't say they're, immune from the effects of this pandemic, but they have been quite resilient. And I suppose on a positive note, sectors like the connected and autonomous vehicle space, the advanced manufacturing space, with companies like Mira GTX also recently landing in Shannon. sectors like the technology space, companies like Transact on the fintech side recently landing in Limerick. That gives us confidence that there's still sectors that are strong and that are continuing to grow. So I suppose I'd be cautiously, optimistic for the future that, the Midwest has quite a strong portfolio of companies, and I suppose a lot of the good things that would have attracted Chris and his team to invest in the Midwest, will continue. And I suppose we're all, happy to see the last week or two, it feels like there's been, good news in terms of 90% effective vaccines, 93%, 94%. There's a sense that if we can get through the next couple of weeks and months, that things will start to open up again, and hopefully we're on a more positive trajectory.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, they're game-changing numbers, really, aren't they, in terms of getting on top of this pandemic? So I think you're right. I mean, that's the overall feeling out there, that tough winter and then a bounce back. So fingers crossed that goes as planned. And can I ask as well, just in terms of, I suppose, the landscape has changed from a remote working point of view, and again, this is very topical, but you'd experienced it yourself firsthand too. So do you think, Will, that there's an advantage now to the smaller towns and cities that would be competing maybe with the likes of Dublin and London, Germany and big cities across Europe? Is there an advantage to the smaller places with the remote working and the move to remote working overall?
I think, Derek, as you'll know, talent is key, and talent drives decisions. Mm-hmm. And I suppose what places like Shannon and Clare and the Midwest region, Clare, Limerick and Tipperary, have to offer is a good cost of living and a fantastic quality of life. Mm-hmm. And, I think when you see people like Peter returning home, it speaks volumes to, that sense of community, the wild Atlantic way in our doorstep. All the good things that Ireland has to offer. And I suppose over the course of ID Ireland's last strategy, even before the pandemic hit, companies like Apple, eBay, Shopify, Wayfair and others were starting to embrace remote working. And it's a trend that we've been keen to encourage, because it's a way to drive the impact of FDI into, I suppose, every town and village in Ireland. And, I suppose that the benefits are well documented, that quality of life, flexibility, being able to attract and retain your workforce. But I suppose there are disadvantages as well, in terms of that onboarding process, especially for maybe younger employees, Derek, and you'll be familiar with this, trying to train new staff, trying to onboard new staff. You don't have that water cooler type, tap someone on the shoulder effect, that kind of knowledge share. Also conscious, as we're in winter, the mental health effects that, a lot of people are missing the social aspect of the office. And, Peter mentioned it there, you can't meeting your customers in person. So I suppose that's a challenge we're all facing. But I think remote working and flexibility, a huge number of our clients have been able to adapt to it. We're all learning with it, and certainly I think it offers advantages for regional locations.
Very good. Well, what I might do is, we just dropped a bit of signal with you there a few seconds ago and a visual. I'll come back to you in a minute while that probably fixes itself, and to ask you the same question, Peter, while you're here. Your experience, based on what Will was saying there about, I suppose, you moved home yourself, and you may have had to have gone to Dublin or somewhere else for a bigger job, but you were able to, I suppose, work from home and closer to home. So has that been your experience as well? Was that one of the reasons why you decided to move home?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, the way I was working before, being separated from your family life and things like that. I would have been, if I was in Dublin, like you say, if I had to go to Dublin for a job, it would have been the same thing. If you're away from the home and the family and the community, like Will said. So for sure, it was a huge driver for me to be able to do something that I could get a challenge out of, that I was passionate about, but was giving me the chance to be, like you say, at home and be involved in the community and the family life, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, very good. Well, you're back on screen again. So just finally on the remote working piece then, do you think it could affect FDI on a macro level in terms of will companies in certain countries say, well, look, maybe I just might hire people remotely, they're working from home, what's the point of even setting up an operation on the ground? In some ways, do you think there might be some knock-on effect there in the long term?
Yeah, and with remote work and I suppose resilience of your broadband as well, it seems to have let me down there. Yeah, it's definitely, I suppose there's huge positives in terms of the quality of life and retention of staff, but there's certainly challenges as well in terms of onboarding a workforce. Yeah. I don't think offices are going to disappear either, though. You need that place to meet your customers. You need that place to get the team together. So I think there will be an element of centralization and maybe having a central office, but your team spread out across maybe a wider region. So those are things we're kind of monitoring closely and trying to support companies with. And I suppose even that engagement at corporate HQ, how do you keep that strong if everyone's working remote? When Chris and senior colleagues come in and want to meet the team, you need to be able to get everyone together. So those are things that we're watching closely. Yeah,
I think a good point, Derek, is that just on the remote side, it allows you to get key. If you've interviewed across the nation, for example, it allows you to get your key guys from a commute fashion. If the remote work offers a kind of flexibility there, and it's not going to be a huge killer for somebody to think that they have to go to Dublin, for example, and be away from the family. So I mean, if the office was in Dublin and you were in the Midwest, the remote flexibility would allow a key person, if he was somebody you wanted or she was somebody you wanted. I think that's probably a decent take on it as well.
Yeah, I think so. On both points, what we're seeing in FRS, we've done some large surveys, but then on the ground as well, speaking with candidates and companies. I suppose post-COVID, which could be the second half of next year, fingers crossed, a lot of companies are talking to us about a mixture of a couple of days from home and a couple of days in the office, so that if you do hire somebody, in Cork, that they can be a day or two in Limerick if need be, or Limerick to Galway to Dublin, whatever the location might be. It gives you that flexibility, because nobody, would mind a day or two commuting a week. It's 5 days is where it becomes really tough. Yeah. So I think there'll be a lot more opportunities will come up. We've seen some of them. We've placed some people already into roles with large Dublin companies that they never would have been able to apply for in the past. So we're definitely seeing a shift there. But definitely going back to Will's point around the water cooler conversation, is the juniors and training people up. There has to be that face-to-face, I think, actual interactions in the future, from juniors to learn from seniors, until they reach the stage where they can be, more self-dependent at home.
And Derek, I think just in terms of the infrastructure that's needed, I think Clare, Limerick and Tipperary County Council are doing a great job in terms of the digital hubs that are already there and the new ones that are planned. So I suppose to facilitate those remote workers in an environment that's conducive to it.
Okay, good. What we might do is, there's a couple of questions coming in. Usually on the employer-led webinars, there aren't too many questions. When we have a candidate-driven one, we're inundated. So there's a couple of questions have come through here, and let me just go through them and I'll ask them. And if anyone who wants to answer, work away. So we've got a question from Fionn O'Sullivan, and he just said great insights from all. And to Chris and Peter, do you see post-pandemic that the new world of working from home, okay, this is something we've probably just covered, will continue in some shape or form from Exida and other companies? So I suppose this question is, what for your own business do you see it continuing like this into the future?
I'll go first. So we are, even like in our main office in Pennsylvania, we were looking, and expanding, and which we still probably will do, but it will probably be more team space and conference room and maybe a flex area. So we have like some traditional offices and cubicles, which we'll probably keep, but we even identified there's an area in our current building, and we're going to expand right next to it, so we're not moving, that will probably turn into flex, and then we'll excuse me, they're working from home and someone's at the door, so if you hear the dog bark, that's it. We'll do more of a flex space and then kind of create more of a creative environment to be in, as opposed to, because we realize we don't need as many permanent desks, or we don't need to have everybody in the office 100% of the time. So that gives us a little flexibility and makes it a little more interesting. So we definitely are looking at the hybrid going forward.
Okay, very good. And another question in for yourself, Will. What do you see as the biggest challenge next year for attracting FDI? If you have to pick one particular challenge, what might that be?
I suppose on uncertainty. You know, uncertainty is always difficult for companies, and it's very hard to control that uncertainty. So all you can do is you know, assure companies, you know, having that local overseas office to be close to the company's HQ. You know, having our subject matter experts, be it in financial services or, you know, medical devices, working closely with that sector, and then my own regional team staying close to our existing clients and, you know, hearing what their needs are and trying to assist them as best we can. And maybe secondly, then, you know, remaining competitive, because it's a competitive world, and, you know, the competition to attract foreign companies, you know, from other nations will be, you know, even more intense in 2021 for, you know, what will probably be a more limited number of companies doing international expansion. So, you know, that competitiveness, you know, having our infrastructure right, you know, having good value propositions for the companies when they visit. I think those are things that we can control.
Okay, great.
Can I just add to that, Derek, as well? I don't think the role of the IDA and yourselves at FRS shouldn't be understated. I mean, for anybody that's looking to come into the country, and I'm sure Chris would echo that. The certainty you spoke of there, a lot of the questions that companies will ask themselves are, is it worth the hassle? Where would we find this? And how would we do that? And like I say, you guys are providing those answers for our companies to only have to make maybe a couple of decisions, really, you know. So, yeah, it shouldn't be understated the jobs that you guys do in a particular perspective.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Very much agree.
Thanks, Peter.
Great. So we're probably into the last 5 minutes of today's webinar. Peter, would you mind posting your contact details on the right-hand side of the screen, not in the question section, just as a comment, so that people can reach out to you afterwards? So businesses in the area that might be interested in services, or just have a look at your website and reach out maybe for a consultation. While you're doing that, what I might do is just tell you a little bit about, I suppose, what's going on over the next minute or so with FRS Recruitment in terms of, I suppose, the employment market here, right across the country, not just in the Midwest, and a couple of our initiatives at the moment. So, you know, we still see very much so a high demand for highly skilled work. There's been a reasonable hit this year to lower end roles in terms of I suppose less skilled roles, but the high skilled roles in technical, engineering, you know, pharma, med, IT, supply chain, they're all very much so in high demand. And we've, I suppose, this year we sponsored the GA Go app in order to reach out to expats and repatriate them around the world. So at the moment we have some sponsorships and some advertisements across the web, and we're effectively looking to bring people back from any part of the country and any part of the world, and I suppose match them up with employers who are still looking for highly skilled workers. So the GA Go campaign has gone very well for us, and for any, I suppose, expats who might tune into this, we're offering free flights home to any candidate that we place into a permanent job with our client. So we're very keen to speak to job seekers ready for the move. That's our Ireland's hiring campaign. You can check that out with us online on frsrecruitment.com. So yeah, it would be great, as I said, if people can get in touch with Peter. We'll also send out a newsletter and an email to everybody who's on Crowdcast and logged in today with some contact information, and to mention some of our up-and-coming events. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen, 70minutesofhome.com is our address. It's our micro website for the whole Ireland Charity campaign. So if anyone wants to check that out, please feel free to do so. And you can get in touch with me, Derek Perill. You'll find me on LinkedIn. Any questions from employers maybe who might want to start looking at hiring staff into the new year, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to have those conversations. So to conclude, I just really wanted to thank, I really enjoyed this conversation today. It's great to have a success story like Exida. I've been saying Exida, it's Exida, I got it right finally. Exida for, I suppose, choosing the Midwest, for being a success story, something bright in the middle of a difficult few months, for being an absolute pleasure to deal with, for joining us here today. And I really enjoyed this, and sincere thanks as well to Will. Really insightful, good to see how well the Midwest is doing, and hopefully next year and the year after we'll see much better times again. So thanks very much, and thanks to everybody, all the audience who joined us.
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks, Derek. Chris, Peter, great to see you again.
Good to see you too, guys. Thanks.
Cheers. All the best.
Take care. Bye.